It is Wednesday, October 13th, 2021. Public notice of this meeting was given to all board members and associates. The notice is dated August 27, 2021. Adequate and electronic notice of this public meeting has been provided, specifying the time, place, and manner in which this meeting is being conducted. It was advertised in the Courier Post, posted in all schools, the administration office, the municipal building, the library, the Guadalupe Center, Edgewood Acres, Elmtown, and the Winslow Township post offices. And this is our mission statement. The mission of the Winslow Township School District, a large, diverse, and growing community, is to educate all students to become independent, lifelong learners, critical thinkers, and caring and confident members of their community. The district, in partnership with the community, and in a climate of cooperation and mutual respect, will provide an academic environment which values excellence and diversity, encourages our students to strive for personal excellence, and assists them in acquiring the knowledge, skills, and attitudes necessary to contribute positively to a rapidly changing world. Roll call, please.
Mr. Blake.
Present.
Ms. Dredden. Here. Ms. Martin.
Ms. Martin will not be joining us this evening.
Thank you. Ms. McClendon. Present. Ms. Moore. Present. Mr. Shaw.
Mr. Shaw will not be joining us this evening.
Thank you. Ms. Thomas. Present. Ms. Peterson. Present. And Ms. Tibbs.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you,
Madam
Denise.
President, before we do, if I may, in an effort to let Mr. Shaw know, I'm glad he's not here because of the Cowboys. He told me that we're not actually streaming live. He did tell me we're not streaming live. He indicated that we're not streaming live on the video. I wanted to make sure. He was serious about that part. I was joking with him, obviously, but he was serious that we weren't streaming live. Are we getting,
Mike.
Yeah, it's all, that's fine.
he said he was waiting.
Are we streaming live?
Yes.
We're streaming.
What did I say?
Okay. Thank you, so we'll proceed.
Okay, thank you. Apologize.
I'd like to first stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just before we are about to read our district goals, I would just like to say thank you to all of my colleagues here on the board for your good wishes and good wishes as I recovered with this knee surgery. And so to that end, I would also like to give a special thanks to Ms. Peterson, Vice President. Ms. Peterson is really not a center stage person, but she really was center stage for the past 2 weeks. So thank you so much, Ms. Peterson. Past 2 months, rather. And just one other note, ladies and gentlemen, if you see me get up after about 35 or 40 minutes and begin to walk, I'm not leaving. I simply have to flex this knee. So I just thought I'd let you know. And I am abiding by our rules and regulations. If you see, I don't have the mask only because we are 6 feet apart. I do have my wipes for my mic and I'm the only one using it. So at this time, we're going to go through our district goals. Mr. Blake?
Good evening, it's great day in Winslow. 2021-2022 district goals. Number 1, student achievement. Continue to implement best practices for delivering instruction. Students utilizing all and appropriate instructional models. This shall include ensuring articulation at all grade levels throughout the district, focus on building classroom instruction at all grade levels, ensuring all students have equal access to equipment and and resources needed to facilitate and promote student learning in any setting. Evaluations and updating all district programs, including athletics, extracurricular activities, and accountability of all district staff. Number two, continue to foster a positive school environment that is conducive to teaching and learning. A, focus on building relationships among staff and families that will result in increased learning and more effective instruction. Emphasize on collaboration with all district stakeholders and promote an inclusive, diverse, and compassionate learning environment. Number three, marking our strengths and achievements to all stakeholders to increase capacity for greater parent, caregiver, community support. Letter A, continue with our public relations and marketing plan, continue to work with the various advisory committees in the district, and examine communication methods utilized by the district.
Thank you, Mr. Blake. Board members, moving now along in our agenda, I'm on page 2, awards and presentations.
Madam President, we have no presentation this evening.
Thank you, Dr. G. Correspondence.
Madam President, we have no correspondence.
Thank you, Ms. Ford. At this time, I'm asking for the following approval of our meetings of our Board of Education, our regular meeting that was held September 22nd, 2021, open session. Is there a motion?
Yes, motion to approve the following minutes from September 22nd, 2020.
Lieutenant second.
Been moved by Ms. Thomas and second by Mr. Clinton. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Blake.
Abstain.
Ms. Dredden.
Yes.
Ms. McClendon.
Yes.
Ms. Moore.
Yes.
Ms. Thomas.
Yes.
Ms. Peterson.
Yes.
And Ms. Kelly.
Abstain.
Motion has carried.
Thank you, Ms. Cole. At this time, I'm now also asking for a motion to approve the minutes from our regular meeting that was held September 22nd, 2021, closed session. Is there a motion?
Yes, motion to approve the minutes from our September 22nd, 2021 closed session.
Lieutenant second.
It's been moved by Ms. Thomas, second by Mr. Clinton. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Blake.
Abstain.
Ms. Dredden. Ms. Martin. I'm sorry. Ms. McClendon.
Yes.
Ms. Moore.
Yes.
Ms. Thomas.
Yes.
Ms. Peterson.
Yes.
And Ms. Kelly.
Abstain.
Motion is carried.
Thank you. Moving now, board members, to our committee reports. Mr. Shaw is not here. Would anyone else on the athletic committee care to make some comments with regards to our athletic committee? Okay, thank you. Moving now to our education committee, would there be a report of our education committee?
Madam President, there is no formal report from the Education Committee, but before each of the board members, and we have extra copies, we thought it'd be appropriate, so 2020, 2021, textbooks, adoptions, and purchases that we have made for the district. So that gives you an idea of how we reach our goals for student achievement.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. Moving now to our marketing committee, Ms. McClendon.
Yes, Madam President. So the marketing committee met this past Tuesday, and we met at time starting at 4:35 p.m. Mr. Davis, Blake, Ms. Moore, myself, Ms. McClendon. So this is our next meeting before homecoming this Saturday. So we wanted to kind of just do some last minute tweaks. So this has been a few changes. One of the changes is to set up with where we are positioning the stage now. The stage will now be located still in the back area, but alongside the school, because we had an issue with power. And so where we originally wanted the stage to go, there is not an outlet for power there. So on this past Friday, myself, Mr. Davis, Ms. Sandy, who was our facility manager, among a couple of other individuals, kind of just reset how everything is going to be situated because of the changes that took place. And so our vendors will be alongside the tree line now, and with the stage being in a position alongside the back of the school, between the shop area and the distance area. And Dr. Courtney, hopefully you can visualize where that is. The trees are right there. So the stage will be located there along the school wall. We will also have bleachers out for people to be able to sit. And our trucks will be still located out on the grass. So there's just a minor few changes as far as setup. Ms. Moore just touched on just finalizing the alumni that will be attending and participating with the parade, as well as our band and homecoming king and queens. So just tweaking that part, finalizing with the advisors of those individual areas. One of the things that we will have is just a special little surprise. We were on the search of a family with 3 generations. That included a family that had an Edgewood graduate, a Winslow grad, and current Winslow student. And so that will be a special prize a special addition added to our parade. So we don't want to spoil the alert, but you'll see on that day of the homecoming parade with that particular family participation.
So I believe, Ms. McClendon, in some circles that's called the legacy.
Okay, the legacy. So we're looking at 3 different, the 3 legacies of our district. And so we were able to find a family, thanks to Ms. Moore for utilizing our social media to find out who would be a perfect fit. Okay. So I want to go back to the vendors for a second. With the committee, one of the things that I shared with the committee on Tuesday is we seem to have a little issue, at least regarding some of our vendors. There was some late information brought to the marketing team as far as additional information that is being requested from our vendors. And some of that information has not been provided. And so we run the risk of not having our vendors participate because of this. I think that with a lot of the time and the effort that the marketing team has put into this event, and for the last hour, for something to be thrown in which doesn't give us ample time to be able to acquire, and I'm talking from the truck vendors, but mostly from the vendors that are doing like jewelry, t-shirts. One of the things that was requested from us is that we needed to ask them for insurance and have Winslow put on it. Some of these vendors do this as a hobby, do this as a side interest in the community. So a lot of them don't have that, and that wasn't brought to our attention to the end of last week. So for me, and Mr. Blake, and Ms. Moore, and Mr. Davis, it's like backpedaling now from all the work that we put in, and we've been discussing this for months about the vendors' participation. And for me, I'm a little disappointed that the information wasn't provided to us at any time. So what I would like to do, Mr. Blake, if you could mention those vendors that I'm speaking of, and then I would like to, and I don't know if this is the appropriate time, Madam President, but I make a motion to ask the board to grant special permission because these vendors have set aside their time to be a part of this special day for us. And if we're not able to grant this permission, then we run the risk of not having vendors at our 20th celebration. Mr. Blake?
So we have about 8 vendors. The first vendor is Marcus Jewelry Box. He sells paparazzi kind of jewelry. We have the Queen Storehouse, Tyrone Waters. He sells like shirts and books and oils. Of course, our WTEA is one of our vendors. They have some giveaways for the community. Gail Watkins is selling the t-shirts. We have a henna artist who will be giving out temporary tattoos. We have an It Work, which this person sells healthy products, face painting, and we have Tupperware. Diane Bello. So those are our 8 vendors that may not be able to participate if we do not grant this special permission for them to come.
Now, we were able to secure, at least out of the food trucks that we were having here, we were having Taste and See, I'm going to switch Taste and See. Taste and See, which is the vendor that was going to do chips and fish. We also had Mr. Softy, we had a taco truck. And so right now, Taste and See has pulled out because of the last minute information request. So I was able to get the information from Mr. Softy and the taco truck. So with our vendor trucks, we were able to get some of that information. We also acquired vendor applications that was asked of us from the fire department. So those items were submitted. And then we were also asked to, along with the insurance, we were asked to have each of them fill out the maintenance form. So some of them we have received back. Again, this information just came to me the end of last week. And then we tried to send out messages to all the vendors. Some have been able to respond and give us the information requested, as far as the maintenance law form, but there are some that we are still waiting on. So at this point, as I said, I just feel like our committee has diligently worked on this for months, and we're at the point now where we run a risk of not having vendors because of the request that has just been made of us. And so, Madam President, if there's any questions, definitely please ask those questions, but I would like, if this is the proper time, to make a motion to ask the board to grant permission for these individuals to take part on the 20th celebration.
And Ms. McClendon, I forgot to add, we are Winslow.
Okay, thank you.
Let me say this, Mr. McClendon, this is the proper time for us to discuss this, certainly because today is the 13th,
Yes.
and we're talking about something that's just a few days away. And so my first question would be, with regards to the information that you said that you just learned about last week, is this something, who brought this to you? Are you saying, and number two, my second question would be to our legal solicitor, because I want to know what kind of liability the district would incur with regards to not having proper information. And let me just say this, while certainly the marketing committee has done a terrific job on this, but the marketing committee is a part of the board. And so any kind of repercussions, any kind of pushback, it would come not just from the marketing committee, because it comes from the board. And so if we could just take a few minutes to clear that up, Mr. Long, if you would help us, because we need to know exactly, number one, what kind of information was asked, and when it was asked.
Well, I will say that Ms. Boyd and I have been working on this since the information came from Ms. Boyd as our board administrator. And she's definitely going to look out for the district. And I understand. But Ms. Boyd knows today, I did share my thoughts about why it was just coming to us now when we've been talking about this in every report that we've made. So it came from Ms. Boyd as far as what we needed. Ms. Boyd has diligently been working, checking with the insurance and so forth. But then here we are at this point.
So can I say this? There's certainly legal advice that I certainly like to give. I'd like to give it to my client under attorney-client privilege so we can have a clear discussion. I can speak freely. Entitled to do that under the Open Public Meetings Act. And I would just ask that we withhold any further discussion so that I can speak to everyone in closed session, and then we can come out and have a conversation. I might prefer that if everybody was okay with that process.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Board members, you've heard the solicitor's suggestion, and so I'd like to hear from you. Mr. Blake?
Yes, no problem. In closed session.
Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Stratton?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson? Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. McClendon?
Yes.
Okay, so it's agreed that we will take up this, based on our solicitor's recommendation,
Yes,
in closed session.
yeah, under matters of attorney-client.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Long. Ms. McClendon, anything further you would like to share?
Yes, our next meeting, and I guess the tentative is November the 23rd, which is probably during our holiday break right before Thanksgiving. So I will double check with the committee members to see, as we do just a debrief of the homecoming event. Meeting was adjourned at 5:15 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McClendon. Before I move on, any further questions from Mr. McClendon? All right, moving now to our operations committee, would there be a report out of our operations committee?
Madam President, at this time, we do have a meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Stratton. Our policy committee here, we do have a report out of our policy committee, and I just want to make sure that all board members did get an email copy of our policy committee minutes. Board members did not get a copy of our policy committee?
There is a program.
Oh, they're in the folder, okay. That's fine. So here's what we're going to do. Because we do have a report out of our policy committee. And I know that I brought it with me, ladies and gentlemen. And perhaps I tucked it away too well. So, and that will be our last report out of our committee. The policy committee met in district on September 23rd, 2021. It was a virtual meeting. Those in attendance were Ms. Lorraine Dredden, Ms. Rita Martin, Ms. Cynthia Moore, Dr. Cote, Dr. Parker, and myself. A total of 15 policies were reviewed and recommended for first reading at this meeting in October. At our October 13th meeting, the board members, you can see that's why your packets are thick, because you have those policies. 10 of those policies were existing policies that require just minor word changes, title change, and the new language for better clarification and alignment with new standards and statute update. Those policies are the following. Policy 2422, Comprehensive Health and Physical Education. Policy 2467, Surrogate Parents and Resource Family Parents. Policy 5111, Eligibility of Residents / non-resident students. Policy 5116, Education of Homeless Children. Policy and Regulation 7432, Eye Protection. Policy 8420, Emergency and Crisis Situations. Policy 8420.1, Fire and Safety Drills. Policy 8540, School Nutrition Program. Policy 8550, Meal Charges, Outstanding Food Service Bill, and Policy 8600 that dealt with student transportation. There were 4 new policies that were reviewed, and they were policy number 6115.01 that deals with federal awards, fund, internal controls, and allowability of costs. Policy number 6115.02, federal award funds, internal controls, mandatory disclosure. Policy number 6115.03, federal awards funds, internal controls, conflict of interest. And policy 6311, contracts for goods or services funded by federal grants. Now, these following policies have been abolished. 6 policies were recommended for abolishment. 3 policies related to the COVID-19 are no longer required because our new state mandates regarding instruction in COVID-19, those policies were policy number 1648, the Restart and Recovery Plan for COVID-19, policy 164802, remote learning options for families, policy 1648.03, Restart and Recovery Plan full-time remote instruction, policy number 5114, children displaced by domestic violence is addressed in policy and regulation guide. Additional discussion, the uniform dress code. A brief discussion on the uniform dress code took place with no recommendation for change. Dr. Parker asked that specific details be provided when voicing concern so that she would know how and where to address the concerns. Dr. Parker also shared that she had not received any calls from parents indicating that they did not have clothing for their children. Dr. Parker further stated that she received 2 donations of clothing that had been distributed to schools in need and was expecting another donation. Ms. Dredden at that time stated that many parents had shared with her their satisfaction with the uniform dress code and also questioned the number of parents that Ms. Moore indicated had issues with the dress code. I also stressed that while there were some parent concerns centered around the dress code, there were many more pressing issues being faced by our district, such as a lack of nurses, our teachers, our aides, and teacher shortage, some of which we are dealing with. Therefore, we should be more concerned with addressing these immediate issues. Ms. Martin commented that committee members should speak with the administration about a parent's concern and not delay or wait to do so during the public meeting. Ms. Moore actually asked if anything would be done to address the issue with parents not being able to hear responses from the call-in action of our public comments that took place at our September 22nd, 2021 board meeting. Dr. Parker shared that the issue was related to the setup of equipment, and this issue was being looked into. Dr. Parker also shared that there was a possibility that the issue might not be resolved immediately. And so that ended and with that, we ended our policy committee meeting. It adjourned at 5:00 p.m. And that is our report on our policy committee. Any questions, comments with regards to the policy committee report?
I wanted to at least mention that for those parents who called in at our last meeting and we were not able to communicate with them, the very next day I personally called each of the parents and was able to address their concerns.
Thank you, Dr. Okay, Mr. President?
Madam President, if you recall, I asked the policy committee if they would let us know what the change was, and I know you said the wording, but just being a past policy member, normally that first sheet that we get that tells us what the change is for each policy, if that could be included somewhere so that at least for me, I know what I'm voting yes or no to. For instance, I would be interested in knowing what the change was for the meal changes, meal charges, outstanding food service bill, student transportation. One, because again, those things may or may not affect me as a parent with a child that rides a school bus. So if there's something that's happening with the transportation, if for me, if it's in here that tells us what the change is, because even if I look at the policy itself that's included, I don't know what I'm looking for. So again, I want to make a request to the policy committee if you would include that information so that it gives me more clarity as to what I am making my vote on.
Ms. McClellan, that makes absolute sense, and I'm sorry that what you have, and all the board members have in front of them with regards to the first reading, because at the policy committee, meeting, and Ms. Moore can attest to this, also Ms. Dredden, what we do receive are copies of the policies where things are highlighted, things, and so you're absolutely right, so we will make sure that, going forward, that the exact policies that we receive in the committee are the policies in the same format that the board members receive for first reading.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? So that concludes our committee meeting of committee reports. Moving now to our superintendent's report. At this time, board members, I'm asking for a motion to approve our superintendent's report that begins at the bottom of page 2. And as you will see, continues on to the top of page 10. Is there a motion?
Yes. Motion to approve the superintendent's report.
McClendon, second.
Moved by Ms. Thomas, second by Ms. McClendon. Would there be further comments or questions?
Yes, Madam President, I have a question. It's on, in reference to page 3,
Page 3,
line item 10, under the virtual remote instruction plan.
page 3, line item 10, virtual or remote instruction plan.
Yes.
Okay.
I just have a question. In the documentation, under item number 1, letter E. So,
Referring to the plan itself?
yes,
Okay, board members, Ms. McClendon is referring to the plan itself? Okay,
and so when I looked at the document, I noted that this is in place if there is emergency closing for more days over 3, whether it's state emergency, declared public health emergency. So that tells me that could be a long period of time. One of the things that concerns me is in number E, where we have that instructional packets will work aligned to the subject matter will be given to those students who have not returned last year's Chromebooks or have not paid for one that is damaged. Now, I understand 100%, that we were still waiting for parents to return Chromebooks. So, I do believe in definitely with parents, if you still have Chromebooks out, we turn it in, because this is something that is important. If we are out for a period of time due to emergency reasons, I do feel that students should be given a Chromebook whether or not they return them in. Because we don't know what the time frame will be, but this is according to an emergency situation where school may have to close down. And so it could be months where a child is receiving only packets and no online instruction with the rest of their class with the teacher. Another thing is, I don't agree that if a parent or a guardian has not paid for one that is damaged, that this child will suffer from instruction with online instruction because of that. So I don't know if the district can put something else in place for that, but I think that if it's an emergency situation and we are closed, then all of that should be a moot point when it comes down to whether or not somebody has paid for a Chromebook that was turned back for broken keyboard and they didn't pay for it. So I would like for us to either have some conversation about it, or the district will consider removing it because it's based on emergency. Now, if you're quarantined and it's just a 14-day, that may just be a 10-day window. I can understand it. But we're talking about in an emergency situation where there is a major shutdown. And there's no time limit as to when or how long the shutdown will be.
Dr. Hope, you want to respond to that?
Yes, we've had this conversation about Chromebooks that have not been returned and Chromebooks that have been damaged. We've been talking about this for quite some time. It is the board's decision that if you do not feel that these Chromebooks need to be returned or paid for that are damaged, then that's a decision you have to make. I pretty much have been following direction and discussion that we've had from previous board meetings up to present date. Now, I am prepared because I've been asked repeatedly, how much, money that we have account for those Chromebooks that have not been returned. I have the number of Chromebooks that have not been returned. I have the number of Chromebooks that have been damaged. I have the number of hotspots that have not been returned. And this possibly could be a good time for me to share that information. I did include that as an information item. However, it is the board's decision. I am presenting this to you for your review. But if you are going to say that at this point the district will absorb the cost and it's not a problem, then we'll move forward and provide young people with another Chromebook. The only thing I want to caution the board is, then you cannot, or will not, I'm sorry, you will not be in a position to collect any of that at this point because you pretty much set the precedence that these Chromebooks, we will continue to eat that cost from this point on. So, I will present, as I have, the information according to the discussion we've had. But it is the board's final decision as to whether or not we want to absorb the cost of what we have and continue to move forward, whatever is your desire.
But Dr. Oti, could you give us some background information on where we are?
Sure.
Because this,
Sure.
Mr. Clinton, you should know
Yes.
that, this very same topic came up in the Citizens Advisory Committee meeting. And
Yes.
there were some suggestions that also came out of the Citizens Advisory Committee meeting with regards to the return of the Chromebooks. But they were talking about just, the regular standard, daily school situation, not an emergency situation. And I believe your focus is on.
Yes, let me just clarify that.
Yes.
I'm talking about in this situation, if there is an emergency shutdown, then I think that the situation regarding whether or not the student gets a Chromebook becomes a moot. It shouldn't be something that's held against them in this particular situation.
So Dr. Oti, this is just for an emergency. This is not,
This plan is for an emergency shutdown for health reasons, COVID spread. As Mr. McClendon mentioned, it could be for 3 days, or it could be for 3 months, or it could be for the rest of the school year. And again, as you know, it is my responsibility to provide you with the information, and it's your responsibility to decide whether or not you want to modify that information or accept what I'm proposing. So let me just begin. And what I've asked the building principals to do is provide me with the information by school, and I'll do it by school. And as you do know, you've been asking me for this information for quite some time, and I'm prepared to make that information available to you this evening. School number 1, we have 14 Chromebooks that were not returned, 5 hotspots, for a total of $3,195. At school 2, we had 11 Chromebooks not returned, 2 hotspots for $3,184. School 3, 64 Chromebooks were not returned, 55 were damaged for a total of $17,829. School 4, 7 unreturned Chromebooks for a total of $1,480. School 5, 38 unreturned Chromebooks, 29 damaged Chromebooks, 10 missing hotspots for a total of $13,344. School 6, 29 unreturned Chromebooks, 7 hotspots for a total of $7,000. Middle school, 31 unreturned Chromebooks, 7 hotspots for a total of $8,288. High school, 35 unreturned Chromebooks, 5 damaged Chromebooks, and 10 missing hotspots for a total of $7,235. Just a note, the damaged Chromebooks were damaged beyond repair. So we have a total of 229 unreturned Chromebooks, 89 damaged Chromebooks, 44 missing hotspots, for a total of 359 pieces of technology, for a grand total of $61,505.
Now, Dr. Poti, if I recall, initially, I believe at the end of the school year, I believe, and I'm sure that our minutes will reflect this, that at that time, there was something like 600
Yes,
pieces of equipment that had not been returned. And so here we are in October, and that number has been decreased to 359,
yes, ma'am.
and for a total of 61,505.
Great.
Now, I should let the board know that some of the suggestions that came out of the Citizens Advisory Committee was that perhaps we could either, in our budget, eat that $61,505. That was one of the recommendations out of the Citizen Advisory Committee, or another recommendation that came out of the Citizen Advisory Committee as a way of dealing with this is to perhaps have the students who do have this problem where they have not returned them. That member thought that perhaps to have them do a community service. However, there was a possibility that somehow that may stigmatize a student. So again, this is an issue that also the Citizen Advisory Committee has taken up. And so we are now at this point here, board members, you've heard what Dr. Lateef has reported to you. I need to know exactly if you are prepared to discuss some sort of resolution to this.
And Mrs. Fitz, before we go into discussion, let me just say for the record that the school district is not trying to make any money off the families. That is our least concern. What we want is the technology now. And if it's damaged, so it can be repaired, if it is repairable. We've even worked out payment plans for some of the families. They may, a modest payment every month, or whatever they can pay. And those individuals, that situation has been worked out.
Okay.
So it's not an insensitive approach to what we're trying to do. We're just trying to get the Chromebooks back because, as you know, we would like to be able to provide the income to students year after year this technology. So our main objective is just to get the equipment back. But at this point, I'm willing to listen to the recommendation and from the board.
Board members, so we're open for discussion. We need to come together with a consensus with regards to how we're going to give direction to Dr. Lateef to go forward with regards to the returning of these Chromebooks. We're just going to ask for your opinion, your recommendation, your suggestion. We'll start with Mr. Blake.
Our recommendation is that in the event there is an emergency, that we should be able to give out those Chromebooks to those families, regardless. I just don't want the education process to stop, because packets, it's not the best way to learn. They do need that instruction, but they can set up some kind of payment plan, like Dr. suggested, those families, but I really feel like they should get those Chromebooks.
Okay, so what you're saying,
So modify.
modify
Yes.
and modify in 2 steps. Could you just repeat that again?
So I would like for the students to receive a Chromebook in the event there is an emergency. So that would be like my main recommendation, regardless of the turn or not.
And what about recovery?
And instead of payment plan for recovery.
Instead of the payment plan,
Yes.
recovery, so those would be your 2 suggestions?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Thomas?
I'm undecided about it right now. Not sure if we can come back around now. I think, of course, in an emergency situation, children should still have access. But something I'm thinking about is that right now, those Chromebooks and hotspots have not been returned. Can those parents provide maybe a hardship letter, just some type of communication with the school district, about what their hardship may have been. But again, I would do something about it.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Thomas. Ms. Jordan?
Yes, I feel that, I understand that the children, they need their education. But as Dr. Ortiz said, we will have to eat it once we allow it to happen. And, but I feel the children should have, something so they can also learn with as well. But who are we gonna hold accountable for? If they take and we do it, we feel like they very well, and if I didn't have to worry about the other Chromebook, probably shouldn't have to worry about this one. And, that's really a hard decision to make. Because it's not guaranteed. And, we're trying to be fair about it. We don't want the children to think that we don't want new Chromebooks or anything or hotspots or anything like that. But we must let them know too that they need to return what it's received. And, for emergency situation, I'm not sure about how we should handle that. Because we really would have to come together and make a decision on something like that. Not just right now as we're speaking our opinion.
Well, we're just trying to get a consensus.
Yeah, but I really feel right now, looking at it, I'm not sure, but I feel like this is if we give them the, Chromebooks or whatever they need again, don't mean they have to, pay for the remaining things that they did not return.
Okay. Ms. Peterson?
Well, I concur with everyone's opinion. My only thing, if the total right now is 300 some thousand?
No,
61,505.
61,505.
61,000. So my question is that how will it impact our overall school budget?
I don't think it will impact that budget.
Then I'm I would suggest, yes, given the Chromebooks.
But let me turn to the business administrator who deals with the budget and ask Mrs. Gould, because I have not asked Mrs. Gould, what type of impact, all the time would this have as far as the budget is concerned, the monies that we have not been able to use?
So the equipment has already been purchased. If you disperse it to students and they don't return it, and something else happens, so let's say there's 359 Chromebooks that have not been returned. If another emergency occurs, we have to replace those 359 so that everybody has it. $61,000, we'd have to expend it. And if I understand what we're saying. My other side of the story is, what about the student who borrowed, maintained, paid it back? What's my incentive to borrow, maintain, and give it back when I didn't give it back because I broke it? So I think, for me, a payment plan, if the parents come up and start making a payment plan and they adhere to it, then give them the other Chromebook. Financially, I don't know if we can continue to replace Chromebooks to that magnitude every year. We were even in a situation where we were trying to go into a replacement, like recycling, like we do with the buses every year. We replace a certain number. We have been getting federal funds, and the problem with that is if you buy a large group, 400, then down the line, when they're useful life goes, you have to replace it. So, there is a limited pot of money, that's all I can say.
And that was my point. I concur that the students need it. I feel responsibility that parents need to do an incentive. But then also, if we're projecting now, as you project, 5 years from now, how much is it going to impact the budget? That's what I was saying.
Mrs. Fitz, just want to add that since we have been able to get more of the Chromebooks back, hotspots back, because parents have been able to work with us and provide us, the money through a payment plan, excuse me. But there are quite a few here we've met with resistance. I mean, it's just made it very clear to us that we're not getting those Chromebooks back. Refuse to respond to us. We don't even know where the Chromebooks are at this point because they won't respond. And when we try to reach out, it has not been very receptive. So, I'm not sure exactly where to go at this point in terms of how much more we're going to be able to do. But again, I just want to fulfill my responsibility in providing you with the information where we are. And we'll continue to have this discussion, and hopefully we'll be able to resolve. The other thing is, the report is being presented to you, the plan is being presented to you because it has to be submitted to the county office and to the New Jersey Department of Education before the 29th of October. The reason I mention that is, if you're going to continue to have discussion beyond this board meeting, we still have, a few days, but we don't have a lot of time because this is a mandate by law that you must have a plan in place before the 29th. So I don't want us to waver on it and move on and to the point where we don't meet the mandated deadline for submission.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mr. Moore?
I know we tried. I know we even had a nighttime drop out to try to get the technology back. But I also agree that if it's a mandatory shutdown, then these kids are on the learn on their own, just what happens. Somebody needs to teach them. At some point, it was brought up, I think by Dr. Cote, maybe we could get insurance for any of the ones that are issued in the future, because that'll protect us, a little bit at least. But I understand that parents don't respond when we contact them, that's an issue. I would like to know, okay, so we don't get it once you have one still that you can use? I mean, can we find that out, or are we just not communicating?
Probably not, particularly from the ones who have not been responsive. We would like to believe, and the reason we say we won't give you another one, because we are assuming, since you have a Chromebook that you didn't turn in, you have a Chromebook that you can use. So now we give you another one, and you have two of our Chromebooks. And there may be only one child in the home. So, I don't know, it's not a matter of us, wanting to hurt children, because ultimately, this falls to the parent. Because the parent is the one who's signing out the equipment, and the form that they sign is very clear on that responsibility. So, I don't want to punish children for the actions of their parents, but we also want the parents to value our education and value the information and resources that we provide, because it is part of the education. So, I think I've spoken enough on the matter at this point, and I think, whatever recommendation you make, I'll make the changes or adjustments on the plan, and we'll move forward.
Mr. Clement, do you have any further comment?
Yes, I agree with what you said, Dr. Cote, as far as we need to continue to work with the parents to recoup some of that. I think one of the things that can also help is that even moving further with this is that there should be a money value already put in place as far as what if something like if it's missing a key, key from off the keyboard, what the replacement would be on it. So, and I say this because there's some situations where at some of the schools where it's like bring your $200 because if your Chromebook is damaged, you just won't pay $200, right? And so I think being transparent with the dollar amount of how much it costs to replace the entire Chromebook or if it's a missing key, I think that would help as well. Just having it already written so that no one, or there's not just magical numbers coming out the sky, right? Secondly, Dr. Lateef mentioned something that's very key is that, making sure that parents value the education of their child. And it's unfortunate that sometimes we run into a situation where, maybe some parents just don't know how to, right? Because you have some parents out there that just don't exemplify that for whatever reason, right? And it just could be young parents too. And so, but at the end of the day, for me, it's about the instruction and education for our student. And so whether a parent pays it at that time in an emergency situation, I need that student to be taken care of first, for the instruction. So I agree with you. I think we should continue to try to recoup the money. But in this situation, under this plan, if it's an emergency, that should be an issue that affects us.
Thank you. Here's, board members, what I'm suggesting that we do, because this is not an easy fix. It's not an easy answer. Some of us, of course, need more time to discuss this. There's at least 2 board members that are here. But I can say from me personally, number one, we are an institution of education. And as an institution of education, it is our job to foster potential, the growth, and the achievement of our students. That's what we're here to do. And that's what this district is about doing. Secondly, there is also a matter of accountability and responsibility. And so therefore, what I am saying, at least we do have some time, such that we don't absolutely have to go into this tonight, but I'm going to, board members ask that you allow us to do, is to have this go over to our policy committee with 2 things for sure. Number one, it appears that we all agree that the children have to be educated. And then number 2, we all do understand that there is a money factor, but that does not eclipse the fact that the children have to be educated. And so since Dr. Lateef has told us that he has to have it in by the 29th, we have a second meeting on the 27th, correct?
Yes.
And so therefore, on October 27th, we should, as a board, be able to come back with the help of whatever information and further research that the policy committee does in conjunction with the Citizens Advisory Committee, and be able to put this to bed on October 27th. Now, does anyone have a problem with that? Is anyone, are you in agreement with that?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Stratton?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson? Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. McClendon?
Yes.
Okay, so we agree that by the 27th, Dr. Lateef, you will have a definite direction as to where we're going to go with regards to completing your plan so that it can be submitted. So therefore, at this juncture, board members, we're going to table on page 3, number 10, to be further discussed and decided upon and completed at our October 27th meeting. So therefore, I'm going to go back and again, just go over this particular motion. The motion to approve the superintendent's report, tabling page 3, number 10, as it appears on page 2 and continues through to page 10. And so the motion has been put forth. We had a discussion, and I reiterated the motion, the fact that we're going to table number 10. And so therefore, I'm asking again, I'm going to ask for a roll call on this motion with the correction, with the change. Roll call, Ms. Moore?
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Ms. Draven,
Yes.
Ms. McClendon,
Yes.
Ms. Moore,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
and Ms. Pitts.
Yes,
Motion has carried.
thank you, board members.
Mrs. Fitzgerald, I just asked a question,
Yes.
clarification,
Yes,
and I didn't want to interfere with the voting,
Perfect.
but I want to ask now, on the 22nd, are we going back into discussion like tonight, or on the 27th, will a decision be made? How are you going?
My expectations is that on the 27th, the decision will be made.
What is our next school board meeting?
I'm just excited, but the concern that I have is that you mentioned earlier, like the policy committee and the CAC will take into consideration the comments that were made. So there's going to be a policy committee meeting in order to address this, then it would have to come before the 22nd, which means that it would probably take place on the 21st, next
Exactly,
week.
exactly.
But, again, I'm not sure to what degree, the committee, the advisory committee, but I just need to make sure that the board is prepared to make that final decision on whatever it is to be discussed. Because at this point, it is at your level to make that final call.
So board members, we are prepared to make the final decision? Mr. Clinton?
I can make it tonight if we're ready to do that, but you want us to wait until the next board meeting, so.
So there are some things that we have to kind of lay out, just also for clarification, and the fact that we do have two board members who are in the meeting. Okay?
Very well.
So, we have an understanding, clarification?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Moving now, board members, I'm on page 10, I'm asking for a motion before I ask for a motion for the business administrative report, we have a slight correction, right? On page 10, under the business administrative report, letter B, under letter B, number 6, the bill list, there's a change in that number. The number right now reads 2287-167 and 55 cents, correct? We're going to change that to $2,827,167.55. Are we clear? Okay. So, at this point, board members, I'm asking for a motion to approve the Business Administrative Board Secretary's report that begins at the bottom of page 10 and continues through to the bottom of page 15. Is there a motion?
Yes. Motion to approve this administrative report.
McClendon, second.
Moved by Ms. Thomas, second by Mr. Clinton. Further comments or questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Ms. Draven,
Yes.
Ms. McClendon,
Yes.
Ms. Moore,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
and Ms. Pitts.
Yes.
Motion has carried.
Thank you, board members. I'm now at the top of page 16. I'm asking for a motion to approve the personnel report that begins at the top of page 16 and continues through to the bottom of page 18. Is there a motion?
Sorry. Motion to approve the personnel report.
McClendon, second.
It's been approved by Ms. Thomas, second by Mr. Clinton. Further comments or questions?
I'm sorry. Ms. Pitts. On number 7, it says,
Hold on, Ms. Moore, what page are you on?
page 17.
Okay.
On number 7, it has 2021, 2022 winter cruises, but in the chart, it has fall coach and fall coach positions on that chart in the following one.
That's a typo, that should be winter.
I'm sorry.
That's a typo, that should be winter. These are winter coaches.
That's what I thought. So it's on A and B.
A and B.
Then it goes a fall coach position in the charts.
Okay, so therefore, that's the correction, it should say winter, correct, Ms. Davis? So we made that. Okay, now, Ms. Moore, I'm just gonna back up for a minute, to make sure, before I go forward with this motion, page 17, number 7, it says it says 2021-22 winter coaches, right? Right. And so, under letter A, it says approve the following middle school winter coaches.
Right.
And so you're saying that should be fall?
No, in the chart,
In the
chart
chart.
says,
The chart down.
chart says, it should say winter.
Winter coach, winter.
Got it. Got it.
The same thing for letter B or maybe.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So Mr. Davis, you said it was just a typo,
Yes.
because that wasn't clear here. Thank you, Ms. Moore. Thank you, Mr. Davis. The board members, I'm going to now continue with the motion and ask for a roll call.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Ms. Strader,
Yes.
Ms. McClendon,
Yes.
Ms. Moore,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
and Ms. Pitts.
Yes.
Motion has carried.
Thank you. Moving now, board members, I'm at the top of page 19. Moving towards our addendum, which is certainly our print sheet, that we always get it. And certainly we received it in time enough that I believe you all have an opportunity to read through it. So therefore, at this time, I'm asking for a motion to approve the superintendent's report as it appears on the addendum, page 1, down to the middle. Is there a motion?
Yes, motion to approve the addendum for the superintendent's report.
Second.
It's been moved by Ms. Thomas, second by Mr. Clinton. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Ms. Strader,
Yes.
Ms. McClendon,
Yes.
Ms. Moore,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
and Ms. Pitts.
Yes.
Motion has carried.
Thank you. Moving now, board members, still on our agenda, I'm asking for a motion to approve the business administrative board secretary's report as it appears on the addendum, bottom of page 1, continues over to the bottom of page 2. Is there a motion?
Yes, motion to approve the business administrator addendum.
McClendon, second.
Moved by Ms. Thomas, second by Mr. Clinton. Further comments or questions?
Question, Madam President.
Yes.
So under 1, with the vendors, since we're going to go into exec session to discuss things, then that part we table, because that's part of the whole bill or.
No, I don't see a need to, because it's my understanding that because it's on the addendum, they have approved, they have submitted.
Okay, so we don't need to, okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right. Any further questions? All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Ms. Strader,
Yes.
Ms. McClendon,
Yes.
Ms. Moore,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
and Ms. Pitts.
Yes.
Motion has carried.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Moving now, board members, we're back on our regular agenda. Page 19, Open Public Records Act, Ms. Boyle.
Yes, we received an open request from compliance at eastcarpenter.org, and they requested documents related to purchase orders listed below. They wanted the original proposal and/or estimate of vendor, the original purchase order that the district gave to the vendor, copies of all bills and change orders, proof of payment, all certified payroll records from either the vendor or the subcontractors for the list of POs that you see. All of those items were approved. Certified payrolls for DeAndrea were not denied, they just have to be redacted, but we did send all of the other information. I'm sorry, I'm speaking to the mic. We did send all of the other information and the certified payrolls. We're just waiting for me to redact, and we'll forward them as well. We received a second request from Mrs. Duenas He wanted the contract between our district and our IT technology services, including the number of employees, their salaries and services provided to the district. That document was supplied. Ms. Renzulli wanted the yearly budget amounts broken out for high school sport teams with budget line item and expenses listed for the years 1819, 1920, 2021. Though that request was denied because they do not exist, the district does not maintain expenditures by sport. They would be all consolidated into each line. So coaches would be all in one line. Athletic supplies would be all commingled in one line, and they're not broken out by team. So that's not a record that we could supply. Ms. Marshall requested annual report submitted to Dr. Cote and the board from principal regarding the uniform policy and its influence from the time of implementation to current, which is 10/6/2021. That request was denied because the records do not exist.
Madam President, can I address that one because that does pertain to me?
Yes,
In reference to those reports. When Mrs. Bull asked me for that information, I told her those records did not exist. If you can recall, in the early years of the uniform policy, we had several meetings, and we also met continuously with our administrative staff. I would share that information with you based on those meetings. You asked me recently for those reports, and I shared with you that the principals were not asked to submit annual reports. However, my information to you and our discussing the uniform policy was based on the meetings that we had and the information that I received from those principals. So I see why you also would have been asking for those reports. However, I think one of the things that really needs to be done here, because we haven't had a uniform conversation within the administrative staff quite some time. But it seems like every meeting, every committee, this situation always comes up in terms of uniforms. And even if reports were available, I don't think that's the answer that people are looking for. I sat in on the Citizens Advisory Committee meeting this last week. Of course, we sat through several meetings here. Uniform continues to come up. I am prepared to make a recommendation to the board that we take uniform policy, or just uniforms itself, because I don't think basically dress code policy uniforms, that we take it back to the community and once and for all bring some closure to this topic or this discussion. I think we should put together a one-question survey. I just wrote down a question. It could be modified either way, but an example would be, do you support uniforms for your student in the Winslow Township School District? Of course, we're talking about next year, we wouldn't be in the middle of the year, and it's yes or no. I think at this point, we just need to come to some decision as to whether or not we're going to continue to move forward with uniforms or we're not. And I think that's where we're at. I think we need to put this conversation to rest because it keeps coming up, and it doesn't matter what meeting I'm a part of, it always comes up. So at some point, I think we do need to put this behind us. If the parents have changed over the years, and those who brought it to us years ago, if the sentiment is not the same. But then on the other hand, we don't hear from a lot of people about uniforms. At this point, we're not getting any type of feedback in our schools. Principals aren't hearing anything. But I think at this point, if it's going to become an issue that we have to continue to discuss in open public meetings or committee meetings, I think it's time to bring this to a head, put a question out there, whether you support it or not, and whichever one gets the majority votes, and for me, if it's 100 to 101, 101 you win, and that's the way we move. So that's a recommendation I would like to put before the board for your consideration.
Comments, questions, board members, on Dr. Ortiz's recommendation? We'll start with Mr. Glenn. Okay, I'll start on this side. Okay, Mr. Moore, that's right, you're right. Mr. Glenn, then let's start over here with you.
I think that's an excellent idea, Dr. Posey, to bring it back to the community to give at least some sort of how you feel since it's been implemented. And I know you said this is going to be a one question, and then you have some people that may ride the fence. They like, or either or, maybe they're looking for just something else to be done to help with the uniform process. But I think what you just said, excellent idea.
And Mrs. McClendon, you're right. It's either you support it or you don't. Each family, one vote.
Mr. Moore, comment?
I agree with that, but I will say that in reference to the request, I know it's a question I've had over the years, like I don't remember us getting a report about how uniforms have affected learning and bullying and things like that.
Right.
So even if we make the change, I still think that it's information that we should have.
And you know something, Mrs. Moore, I don't have a problem with that, because the information, and we're talking 3-4 years ago, because that's up to now, we are dealing with trying to educate children in the middle of the pandemic, and this is not a discussion we've had in years. But I think at this point, even in the early years, the information we were gathering from the building principals was in line with the research on uniforms, one way or the other, is already out. It was nothing different. And we can do that, particularly if the community voted yes, that they want to continue with uniforms, then I don't have a problem with that. Because if that's going to make a difference, then we will provide that information to the board on an annual basis. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with that.
Stevenson? Comments, questions on Dr. Ortiz's recommendation?
I
and the survey?
I support it, and it's the community you're saying, the school community.
Yes, it's good. You have to have a child in the district. And my thinking on the top of my head would be, would you use that for? In order, you have to have a login, and all families do, so that's why one vote per family. You log in for it. There's the question, yes or no, and we move on. Just simple as that.
Okay. Mr. Edmund?
Yes, very good.
Yes.
Ms. Thomas?
I agree. I think it will provide accurate data.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Dr. Ortiz, it appears that certainly it's a consensus of the board that you go forward with the survey. Now, the question I would have is, when did this survey?
Well, give me an opportunity, because, since the last board meeting, and then, of course, last week, we had the Citizens Advisory Committee, and everybody's at the point where, look, we need to get this.
So Dr. Ortiz, can we expect maybe by the next board meeting?
I think, yeah, because we only talked about the question. I'll just make sure I phrase the question. I'll make it very simple. I want to sit down with our technicians to make sure it's online and how we're going to set it up, and further talk it through with my leadership team. And absolutely, we'll be ready. I'll be able to say to you, we're ready at the next board meeting. We'll do robocalls, we'll do whatever we need to do to get the parents ready, let them know it's on the website, or let them go in, make it, and we're not gonna keep it out there for a month. I think we need to limit it, but either you're gonna vote or you're gonna just put it out there, let the community decide. And ladies and gentlemen, once we get the numbers, we can stop it one way or the other. Let's bring it to a close, and I think it gives the parents that the last opportunity to say yes.
Thank you, Dr. Yes, Mr. Long. Oh, even our solicitor supports that. So, is your recommendation supported, Dr.
Thank you.
Okay, board members, moving on, I'm at the top of page 20, old business. Would there be any old business that we care to discuss at this time? Hearing none, new business. Would there be any new business that we would care to discuss at this time? Thank you.
Ms. Fitz, I have a question. I know the water fountains were turned off, I believe, in this fall.
Yes.
Were the refillable bottle stations also turned off?
Well, we had turned off anything that wasn't, already like bottles. We not using anything other than bottled water and all that stuff.
And have we provided enough water?
Oh, yeah, the water's there, yes. We have been delivering water on a regular basis, to all of the schools. And at this point, I have not received any feedback from the building level as to, the supply is not sufficient or anything. Dr. Carpenter, have you heard anything about the water?
No, the only concern I have from the building principal is actually is too much water. The amount that you're receiving and to modify the size of the bottles, but they have more than enough water.
Okay.
Okay, but that's good. But I did want to ask why, just for the real easy green and sustainability and all, why are we turning off the refillable bottles?
Yes, I think I've shared with the board on a regular basis that every Thursday, the superintendents in Canyon County meet with the Canyon County Department of Health. And during that discussion, Dr. Walker, who's the director, shared with us that the positivity rate in Canyon County has moved up to the high range. And the water fountains would be considered a high risk of spread if you continue to use them. So that's all I needed, because again, think about it. Water fountains, everybody will be going to the water fountains, using them, touching them. You have to remove your mask, over your mouth, that sort of thing.
But okay, I understand that as far as regular water fountains, but the refillable bottle stations, no one's putting their mouth anywhere near them. It's just putting them out there and refilling it. So I just.
Well, we eliminated any chance of a spread of any kind and put us in a safe situation where everybody will be dealing with their own personal bottled water. I will continue to take whatever steps that are necessary to keep the staff and students safe at all times. This was the safest way to maintain, at least to a minimum, to prevent the spread of the virus in the schools. So that was the recommendation that I made, based on the direction and information we received from the health.
Dr. Ortiz, moving now to informational items?
Yes.
Can I go first?
Yes.
Yeah, information.
Some good news, one of our former board members, Joanne was shocking. He had an opportunity to look at her Facebook page. It's almost a miracle. She has come back. So, after a long illness since January. So I want to thank everyone that has thought about her, sent her well wishes, sent her any tokens of love, some sent meals for the family. It's been a long struggle, but she has made, appears like a full recovery and on the way. The other one, board members, and I hope you don't mind, in line with our 20th anniversary, we had, and I'm trying to think, she's been there a couple of decades. She's been a long-standing volunteer of the stage and drama. They call her Mama Sands. And Mama, we sent her a basket, a fruit basket from our money that we have donated. I keep the well wishes from the board because she has been battling and she's just come back out of major surgery. I want to thank the board and let you know that a basket was sent to Mama Sands from us.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson.
Yes, Madam President, members of the board and the community, I have several information items this evening. Just like the uniform situation that comes up all the time, every year, particularly in the months of May, June, September, we have an influx of questions and concerns about the heat in our buildings and whether or not the temperature or the environment is conducive to teaching and learning, and when are we going to address that issue. We have a long-range plan in which we intend to air condition buildings as the monies become available, particularly on an annual basis. For example, next summer we have earmarked the high school, School 6, HVAC concerns to be addressed and air condition those two buildings. But apparently we're not moving fast enough. And I said at one of our meetings that we need to put this question also to a vote and bring it to a close, because if the school district's process is not moving fast enough, then maybe we should go out to the community and ask them for additional monies through the tax process to help us speed up the process. So what I did, I called the Board of Elections, and the Board of Elections shared with me that if we want to put this question on the ballot for next November, then we have until September of next year to put it on the ballot and bring it to the community. Because I too would like for this situation to be addressed, because it keeps coming up year after year after year, and I find myself in a situation where I'm getting the same information, because everyone in the district knows that our buildings are not completely air conditioned, but I have to continue to answer the same question every year. So we put it to a vote, put it to the community. I will be sitting with Mrs. Boyle and our solicitor to draw up the questions, so we will be able to tell, or at least share with each resident how much additional money is that may cost based on your property. And we just put it to a vote. And I think it was our last board meeting we talked about this situation. So I am prepared to move forward with putting this on the ballot if the board approves. My next item, virtual instruction during quarantine and what parents should expect from the district was sent out to parents last week. And pretty much format as what parents could expect if their child was quarantined for 14 or 10 days. I'm quite sure that they need some questions, but however, at least it gave the parents an idea, as well as our teaching staff, of what those expectations would be. Virtual instruction and remote instruction plan, we will revisit that. We have another serious issue. You know, I sent out a letter to the parents about the TikTok challenges. So far, I want to thank the parents because we have not had issues related to those challenges in the school district. So I appreciate your support. But there's another issue we have in the school district, particularly at the middle school, where young people are thinking that saying that I have a weapon or there's a weapon in my book bag, that it's a joke. And what the young people fail to realize is that every time we hear that, we're going to address it as though we were telling the truth, because we don't know when we're going to be joking or when it may be something serious. But I don't think those young people or the parents understand that every time we have a situation like that, we call the police. The police will arrive at the school. We go through a search and seizure. Some cases we have to lock down the school. And whether it's false or whether it's real, that process still carries out. And all the resources that are used to come to that building just to make sure that those staff members and teachers are safe. And then we come to find out the young people say, oh, I was just playing around. The school district will continue to handle those matters, because the one time we don't, may be a serious situation. And school shootings across the country are up, and we do not want to have that situation here. But I want everyone to know that we want to deal with those young people according to disciplinary code as well as the law. And we want the parents to know that we want to take these types of situations very seriously. On Monday, October the 18th, I will have my real talk with the superintendent from 6:30 to 7:30. Parents who are interested, please join me on Monday with any questions or concerns you may have. October the 18th is the state mandated day for everyone who is not fully vaccinated to submit to their immediate supervisor a negative COVID test, or they will not be able to enter our buildings or grounds until that test is taken. We're not sure what impact that will have in the district as far as staff is concerned. We have an idea how many people are unvaccinated, and at this point, we have been working with our Teachers Association and our private contractors, and at this point, I'm satisfied with the support we've received thus far, and hopefully it doesn't become a problem for us. But there is one issue beyond our control that I'd like to bring to your attention. Transportation provided by the Camden County Educational Services Commission may be affected because we have those buses taking our youngsters to the vocational school and our special education children who are out of district placement. They ride on those buses from the commission. The issue we're having is many of those bus drivers are not vaccinated and they are from private industry. The superintendent at the commission stated that those drivers are not receptive to get vaccinations, and there's a possibility he may lose many of his drivers, which means that we may lose those runs to those particular schools, which means that those young people will not have transportation. Here in the Winslow Township School District, we are stretched as far as we possibly can in meeting the needs within our district, and we're not sure whether or not we're going to have to make some adjustments. I'm pretty much putting it out there in advance because we won't know until Monday what this impact will be, if any. I hope and pray that it doesn't become an issue for us, but I don't want anyone to get caught off guard and say they didn't know that that possibility is out there. Madam President, members of the board committee, that concludes my information items for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Cochi. Before we go into public comments, in the event that the statement that I made earlier, you saw me get up and walk. For those who may not be here, I simply have to do that every so often in order to flex this new need. So hopefully you all won't have to go through that, but I had to flex it out. I wasn't leaving, I just had to flex this new need.
Mr. President, I have information on.
Yes.
First, I want to say, Dr. Cochi, great suggestion about putting it back out to the community about air conditioning, like if you get it back on the ballot, it just has been a lot of concerns with that, and because it's still, it's probably not hot on the press now because the weather is changing, but that is something that we need to definitely take advantage of now, because if the community will be for it, then that's going to definitely help benefit the school. Secondly, if we proceed in that direction, definitely, I think, again, just providing a point of information to the community as it goes to November for election about why it's needed, what schools is affecting, if it's the downstairs, upstairs, just more information that people will allow it to go through. And even beyond just the school, like the second fire department, they went to other places because you still want to get those votes for it to pass. So I think that's something as we prepare for that we also go out into the community, because we need that to pass as a vote. We wouldn't just be the school population or, the community of the school, but we want people to understand why it's being asked for and how it has affected our district.
Well, thank you for volunteering your services.
Listen, I'm always looking, that's never a problem.
All the other board members, particularly neighborhoods, constituencies in which you represent. Yes, because it does impact all the communities, because everyone will have an opportunity to vote, because it's going to be on that ballot. What we are looking for is to raise enough money to do all the schools, not one in particular. Now, we strategically as a district have been trying to do them every year, and the plan that we had, the long-range plan we had, it would take at least 3 years for us to get to all of the schools. If and only if we're able to continue to find those monies so we can do this. And what we've been able to do is to renovate and upgrade our schools and facilities without asking for taxes. But apparently, we're not moving fast enough. And I think some of the parents out there want us to move much more, with more deliberate speed, and the only way we'll be able to do that is if we have money. Now, here's the flip side of this fix, and I'll be finished with that. Even if we get all the money, having enough contractors, materials, services, workforce available to do all the schools, let's say, in a year or two, that is something we have to consider. Because right now, if you look at the workforce and the cost of materials, it has gone to the point where it may or may not even be available. But we'll give it a shot. We'll give it our best shot and see what happens. Thank you.
Along that line, I do have a copy of the connection, and we were cited in that, but maybe this also is an avenue that we can tap in and ask if we can partner with the community, Winslow Township, and put a rationale why we need this building back.
And so another thing I just wanted to mention is that this past weekend on Sunday, there was a benefit for one of our former Winslow school members, Winslow Graham. Thank you. So I wanted to say that, and Dr. Botti and I talked about this young lady graduated in 2019, Najee Seabrook. And so she was, attending Rutgers as basketball, definitely playing basketball here. So this weekend there was a benefit held on her weekly benefit. She was diagnosed with leukemia. And I met Najee back in 2019 because she was awarded a scholarship through Delta Davis Morgan Incorporated. And I had a chance to, continue to talk with her mom throughout the time since she's graduated. And I just want to say that when we talk about Winslow Heart and Soul, and we are Winslow proud, that was one of the things that I really admired our Winslow school family, Mr. Ethan Bobo, and some other teachers many teachers that knew this young lady in the community come together to help this family that is in need right now. And for me, it was very heartfelt. And when we talk about us as a community, that shows that we care because people came out, poured out there, participated in the raffles to be a blessing to this family. So I just want to say, Winslow, this is why we talk about what makes Winslow great. It's the things like this that means a lot when people are in need, especially when it affects a child. And so I just wanted to mention that to the board. It was a great success. And, definitely still praying for this family, for Najee, that, God will work everything out. So I just wanted to make that announcement as well.
That's great, Ms. McClinton, and that kind of piggybacks on what Ms. Peterson said about a former board member, Joanne Mashaki, who was really, as it was reported, really seriously, but she's come back. So miracles do happen, and Najee is young, and so just as you said, this is a community that cares, and we show that we care. We don't always agree, but that's okay. It happens in families, and we always do. Thank you, Ms. Clinton. All right, we're moving down to public comment. What I would like to say before I read about our public comment, we are going to, of course, go through first the procedure for public comment. You come up, make your comment, but so that we can make sure that folks who are calling in have an opportunity and won't have to wait, we're going to have you come up, make your comments. Dr. Petit will comment on them after. Dr. Petit?
Yes.
Okay. All right, the Winslow Township Board of Education highly values the input of citizens in making important decisions that affect the children of our community, the children of our community. We also believe in the rights of citizens to observe our board meetings, to ensure that all citizens have the opportunity to attend school board meetings and offer comment, and to ensure that the board can conduct the important business of the district. We ask that speakers follow these guidelines for making public comments. The board president or board secretary will recognize those individuals in the audience who wish to make comment. Please respect the following procedures. Number one, all members of the public attending our school board meetings must treat each other and the board with respect. Number two, please state your full name and address. Number three, please limit your comments to 4 minutes. Our solicitor is pretty good at that, making sure that we hold ourselves to that. Number four, if there are further questions, please submit your questions to the Board of Education with your name, address, and telephone number where you can be contacted. Your questions will be answered within a reasonable amount of time. And number five, individuals offering citizen comment are not permitted to make personal attacks on any district employee, board member, other testifier, or member of the public. At this time, I'm asking for a motion to approve our entering into public comment.
Yes, motion to approve entering into public comment.
McClendon, second.
Thank you. We'll do a voice vote on it. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Any nays? Ms. Ford, could you just let us know how many are on the list?
Madam President.
And at this time, are we able to find out how many are waiting in queue to call in?
No callers.
No callers at this time.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
There are no callers at this time.
Okay. All right, Ms. Boyle?
Ms. Tina Marshall.
Hi, my name is Tina Marshall, 9 Celia Street in Somerville. Everybody know? First, good evening. There's a couple of things that I wanted to address. Please excuse me, my glasses are fogging up. I was listening as everybody was talking, and just a few things. Why was insurance never purchased or given for the Chromebooks? I mean, that should be something that a district as diversified as we are, I know other districts in the surrounding areas, surrounding states, charge $25 to $30 to the parent for insurance. So maybe that is something that we need to look into. I agree with Ms. McClendon. I feel as if, each student is entitled to an equal education, regardless of financial. It's not the kids' fault that parents are not doing this. And I agree 100% that it shouldn't fall on the district either. But at the same time, these are children. These are decisions that are being made for them. And we, as a community, as a school board, need to protect those children. Especially in a district as diversified as Winslow Township. I'd like to know why children are being forced to wear masks outdoors during recess, particularly at school number 6. It has been addressed many times on public forums, social media. I don't understand, and it doesn't make sense why children are being forced to wear masks for 8 hours a day with no breaks, especially outside. The live stream, it really needs to be fixed because it's very difficult to attend these meetings and not being able to hear what people are saying. Cell phones. I went through all of the handbooks this week, reading all the policies in regards to cell phones and electronics. I think that this is something that needs to be addressed. We're in the 2021, and we all use them. Teachers are asking students to use them. I have a serious problem with my student being asked to use a device that could potentially be taken away for 30 days when she was instructed by a teacher. That is a problem. I also addressed that at our last board meeting. It is still occurring. The real talks, I think they're great. But why can't they be recorded so that parents who are unable to attend could potentially get answers to questions that they're asking, but are being asked to the superintendent? And I was the one who asked about the reports on uniforms because it is part of the uniform policy. And I don't understand why it wasn't done. I also would like to propose that an outside service complete the questionnaire so that it's unbiased and we get a true and accurate reading. I don't think that it should just be electronic. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Marshall.
Shall I call the next,
Yes.
Ms. Simmons, Stephanie Simmons?
Good evening, Stephanie Simmons, 7 Waltham Way, Sickler, New Jersey. I just wanted to look back on a couple of things from the last meeting. The first part is kind of rhetorical because I heard there's, again, no athletic committee report. And I think pretty much last meeting we established that it's this issue that our high school sports are declining, so we'll move on. I also want to address something that Mr. Shaw brought up at the last meeting. He also was talking about a plan for moving forward. He put an emphasis on the need for volunteers. I just want to highlight a little story about how some volunteers are treated in this district, especially if your last name is Hackenberg. You all know my husband, huge advocate in this district. 3 seasons ago, he wanted to volunteer for the girls and boys programs in soccer, completed the application agency, turned in his soccer resume, which includes Edgewood graduate class of 82. During his 4 years here, he was on the soccer team all 4 years, was the captain of the soccer team, and actually led the team to the Olympic Conference Championship. Trophies in the case out there. And from high school, he went on to play at Rutgers Camden, went on to coach youth soccer teams for pretty much the last 20 years. Impeccable wrestling. He was assigned to, he was approved for the girls and boys. No issue with the boys side. Girls program had very good coaches. During one of the first practices, he was on the field with the coaches while the girls were running laps around and proceeded to hear conversation, including how disgusting our players are, how disgusting our schools are, how the coaches would never send their kids here, and going as far as saying they're going to shop here food because God forbid zero students in the schools, or in the stores. I'll let you know that 2 of those 3 coaches are still receiving stipends from the program. That is how volunteers are treated. So I'm really hoping that we are going to build these programs and try to get the attendance back up that we're considering how to treat our volunteers here. And the other thing was, I noticed in this report tonight, and I don't know if I'm misinterpreting it, but on page 10, principals update, number 4, school highlight, this is none of this time, I just thought it was odd that 8 schools, there were no highlights to report. I'm not sure, like I said, I'm misinterpreting what that means, or, we just don't have anything to showcase for the 8 schools that we have.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Simmons, I didn't hear that last part.
I said, I'm not sure if I'm misinterpreting what the highlights mean, like what it really means, or if you really have nothing to showcase that.
Which one are you referring to?
Page 10, principals report, school highlights. There's none of this time. Like I said, 8 schools here, I find it hard to believe that there's not one positive report tonight.
Thank you. I'm going to apologize now for the next speaker. Thank you. That's what was on the tip of my tongue.
Can you hear me okay? Oh, all right. Good evening, Winslow.
Welcome back to school. My name is Felicia J. Brown, 104 Golden Meadow Lane in Centerville, New Jersey. I just wanted to say I come before you as humbly as I know how, and I hope you're on the edge of your seat listening to what I have to say. Just to shed some light on this uniform discussion, if you visit drop-off or pick-up, you will see most students, if not all, are in uniform. Now, for Picture Day, not only was it advertised heavily at the high school, it was verbally announced by the admins and other students inquiring what they were wearing. Do you know how many students came to school in uniform and the reasons that they gave? And it wasn't that they forgot, and I won't repeat any of what I was told. I've only been here for about 4 years. Our first year, I bought Winslow wear gym clothes for my sons. And when he went to the gym to change, he turned around on his first day and his shirt was gone. I'm not here to shine a negative light, but to say when there's a policy in place, it's in place for a reason. You may not like that reason or think that it's outdated, but this uniform policy should not be stripped like instant gratification because we live in an instant world. These little human beings will need a transition, if any. I wash clothes 2 times a week, but I'm not gonna lie, I also for soccer. My sons are tall, but don't tell them that they're taller than me. That's our secret. JCPenney doesn't have any socks, any long pants. But guess what? Nor does Adidas. JCPenney's is $15.39. Adidas is $45 and $60. I know everyone is caught up in their own self-righteousness, but I'm here to be another voice. This is share another perspective. And after school night, most, if not all, teachers spoke about social, emotional, and wellness for the students. Y'all about to stress me out talking about these uniforms. I would prefer to pay $15.39 for the pants and save the extra $30 to $50 for college. Because imagine wearing jeans, my son said. I want to encourage you to talk to people who aren't the same gender as you, who don't look like you, and who do look like you, to get their different perspective, not to gossip or to be a parent bully, but to get their perspective so that you can understand where understand, because I have, and I feel wholesome, and it's a really good feeling to feel wholesome. And throw in the teachers and the admins too. I heard a few things about policy and rules. Remember, pot goes downhill. It's the teachers at the bottom of the food chain, and they're doing the best that they can. So give grace, and it's not as easy as it sounds. Dr. Petit, I look at you as a person that you need to fly the whole plane. That means everyone has to get on board. Staff, teachers, students, but the parents put the students on the plane. We, as a parent, need to have this broad perspective. Keep in mind, all things fall apart when the center cannot hold. And the teachers are the center, don't forget that. I have 2 suggestions, because I don't like being up here to speak. Turn one of these public comments into a hot topic. Where there's a topic of interest, and then we all listen, instead of just the board. Let it be a group discussion. Let's pros and cons. Don't allow different voices to be heard. I'm talking about the staff, teachers, and admins too. And not long, it doesn't have to be a long discussion. Or you can do a robust feedback form, not a one-question survey. For an example, I can go either way with the uniform. I'm just trying to save some money for college. So if I hear other people's pros and cons, if Dr. T can read off those pros and cons, it can foster that communication and then hopefully respect. Like this redistribution of the Chromebooks, that answer should be respectfully enough. Assume that they already have the last one. Draw the line.
Excuse me, Mr. Felicia.
Thanks for displaying compassion and for listening. And thanks for displaying compassion about the Chromebooks. But that answer should be respectfully known. Thank you. Have a good night.
Joe Thomas.
Joe Thomas, 16 Parliament Lane, Centerville, New Jersey. The community involvement in the survey is a great idea. I don't know where you got it from, but that's a great idea, we all know that. But I want to say the same effort that you put to get that tax on the tax bill, make sure you tell the community how it's going to come off. Because it's very rare that you see a tax bill go there. So you got to make sure that you tell them both how it's going to get on there, and how you're going to follow it to get on. Also, you have the Spanish Honor Society Club here in Winslow Township, who says they're not getting any recognition, they're not getting the same funding as other clubs because they're not clubs. Here's an opportunity to help them become a club, so they can promote and get the same recognition as the other clubs within the school. All right. Second, diversity and inclusion. I'm asking the board to be more involved in the hiring practice of employees. Granted, Dr. Boutique, he's a role model of Black and brown kids. I love it, but I need the board to be more involved. This past 2 months ago, and I had this conversation with the CAC, but it never came forward. We hired 39 employees, and they didn't represent the diversity we claimed. And diversity is not just black and white, it's Latino, it's Middle Eastern, it's Asian, it's the whole culture. So I think we should just, and I know what the answer to the question is, we don't have enough qualified applications, we don't have enough teachers out there, but what are we doing to be proactive to do is to have incentives to make sure that we promote that. And if we're promoting it, maybe that'll change. Also, we got a great game coming up this week. I would ask, and I had the same conversation with the township committee yesterday, that behind the bleachers, we can light it up a little bit and have the police do some circulation behind the bleachers and under the bleachers, because that's where a lot of that nonsense started last couple games. So, and I know we put some, the cops cost a lot to get there, but let's instruct them where to be, where the problem areas are, and that's where the problem areas are. Thank you.
Mrs. Pamela Gordon. Good evening, I'm Pamela Gordon, 415 Old Aerial Road. I wanted to come before the board just to give you a bit of my experience. I have a son that's in the middle school and a son that is at school 6. I just wanted to share our experience, just so you all know that the uniform policy is in place and is doing well. The problem really isn't the policy, but it is the consistency of how we implement the policy. So when my middle school student showed up to gym class, he was able to wear this green. When my student in 4th grade at school 6 showed up for gym class, this shade of green was what he wore. And between the two, the one student was sent to the office and given an infraction for not wearing the correct shade. Now, I'm a graduate of Edgewood High, so I'm going to say it's deep-rooted for me to say that green is green. There was one time that Kelly Green was green for Winslow or Edgewood, and there was one time where this dark green was the green for our school and district as well. Shade of green should not be a reason why my son was pulled out of class for an hour. And I received several phone calls while I was at work. But I'm saying to the board, if we could just be consistent at each school about how we enforce the policy, we will be better, it will make things a whole lot better. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Gordon. Ms. Gordon, just as maybe as an addendum to the fact of the color green, when the policy was initiated in 2014, we actually had a fashion show. I don't know if many of you were here remember that, but we actually put on a fashion show right here in this place to help all parents understand exactly the colors that we were asking because it was so new. And, with the hopes that that would help parents as they're going shopping to understand exactly the colors that we're looking for. But I absolutely do agree with you, and we've had that before. It is a consistency in following the policy that certainly we're going to absolutely focus on. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ms. Boyle?
That concludes those that have timed up.
Okay.
We have callers, in the waiting room.
No, we do not.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
Yes, yes, at this point, yes. Okay. So board members, since there are no more signed up, and in the waiting room, at this time, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn our public comments so that, Dr. Oti will come right behind and give response to all the statements, the comments that were made this morning. Asking for a motion to adjourn public comment.
Motion to adjourn. McClendon, second.
Moved by Ms. Thomas, second by Mrs. McClendon. To adjourn public comment. All in favor? Any nays? Thank you. Our public comment portion is adjourned. Dr. Oti?
Yes, I'll start with Ms. Tina Marshall. First, question was, why does the district have insurance for the Chromebooks? Yes, you do recall that we did have a conversation about acquiring insurance. We have not pursued that. However, I think we do have time since the action plan has not necessarily gone into effect, and hopefully we do not find ourselves in an emergency anytime soon, then I think we have an opportunity to revisit that recommendation. It was something that I brought up some time ago, but I think we're in a position where we can revisit that. The second concern was masks are being worn or asked to be worn at recess at school 6. Let me tell you what the procedures are through the Camden County Department of Health recommendation. Students, even at recess, must maintain a distance of 6 feet apart. As long as they maintain 6 feet apart outdoors, then they should not have to wear masks. However, if that is not the case and they are huddling around each other within that 6 feet, then they should be wearing masks. That's recommendation from the Camden County Health Department. I will have the conversation with Mr. Jackson to ask him about how he's implementing that and what the procedures are, but I'm quite sure through me and through Dr. Cotton, all the building principals are aware of that process in terms of social distancing, even outdoors. Live stream board meetings need to be improved. We are aware of that. This is, of course, new to us, and we are trying to provide this service to the community with the equipment that we have. I have already been advised by our technicians that at some point we may have to consider investing money into a better system, because at this point, we did have a technique in place today where we thought would be a little more efficient for callers. We didn't get a chance to do that, but at some point, we will have to start investing some money in a better system, because the location, this room, and the things we're doing is not designed for live streaming without having better equipment. So we are definitely considering that. Cell phone policy needs to be revisited. Teachers are asking students to use them, which is a direct conflict with the policy itself. I'm not aware of how that situation is happening in the schools. We will have to revisit that and find out. Sure, I am aware of the fact that some teachers may be asking young people, because we have certain apps that young people can, log into using their cell phone, particularly if they're at home. So if it's getting to the point where the teachers are asking young people to use their cell phones in class, then it should not be at the detriment of those students. So we will have to revisit that cell phone policy as recommended, but we need to find out to what degree are teachers asking young people, our students, to use their cell phones in class. Recording real talk with the superintendent. I don't have a problem with recording real talk with the superintendent. I made adjustments from 6 o'clock to 6:30 because I was told that more parents would be more receptive to a later time, so we continue to make adjustments. I don't necessarily have a problem with it. We will take that recommendation under consideration. An outside agency can use to conduct a survey. Personally, I don't think that's necessary. I think it sounds like it boils down to a trust factor as to whether or not the school district is trustworthy enough to conduct a survey. I personally believe that we can. And at this point, I don't think that the time and money for something like that should happen, particularly if it's something that we can easily do. I don't think, nor do I believe, that there will be any appropriate or any improprieties in conducting a survey. We've done surveys in this district, and to this point, all of them have been more than acceptable. I don't think this one rises to the point where we will have to do something other than we've already done. So we gain nothing by being honest, and I have nothing to gain by not giving parents the accurate outcomes which we intend to do once we get started. Mrs. Simmons stated that volunteers for athletics and the treatment of those volunteers have not been acceptable. Let me just tell you how that process works. The school district do not get volunteers without having that conversation with the athletic director and the coach. For example, if I'm coaching football and I'm the head coach, I don't expect the athletic director, the principal, or the superintendent to bring me somebody and say, here's a volunteer, I want you on the staff. That decision is made by the head coach. If the head coach wants a volunteer, then he or she can get a volunteer. We've never said to coaches they can't have volunteers. Sure, of course there's a limit to how many you can have, but I don't think we've ever run into that situation where we had too many. But we normally allow the head coach to make those decisions with volunteers. We don't just give them. I will have to look into how volunteers are being treated. To date, no one has ever brought to my attention, nor has it ever been reported that any of our volunteers have been treated unprofessionally. But if that's the case, then it should have been reported at the time of the incident. So I'm not aware of any mistreatment of volunteers, but we'll look into that. School highlights. And you're right, Ms. Simmons, there are a lot of good things happening in our schools. There may not be highlights today, but we'll make sure that we'll keep you posted on school highlights. We do use our Facebook page and our website for school highlights on each of their websites. So we'll take a look at that. But yes, you're absolutely right. There are a lot of good things that are happening in our schools. And we try to stay abreast of what those good things are. People always sending us stuff and recommendations. So we try to make sure our student success is always publicized. Mr. Daly, you had mentioned about the picture day and the uniform policy. You support the policy, but you also recommend that there should be some group discussions to address that issue. At this point, we will take any recommendation under advisement However, I just want to say, for me, we've had so many discussions on school uniform, to the point where we just have to get to the point where it's either going to be, either we're going to do it or we're not. And I think that's why we're at the point now where we need to put it on the survey, because I'm all talked out when it comes to school uniforms. Mr. Thomas, he indicated that community involvement was a good thing, and as a school district, we would like to continue to do so. The Spanish Honor Society is not getting the recognition they deserve. I'll have a conversation with Mr. Morello to find out and to see what we can do to make sure those young people get the acknowledgement and the support they deserve. Hiring policy and more diversity. Now, I've been confronted with that for quite some time. And I know what we have done and continue to do to bring more people on board. And I don't want to put Mr. Davis on the spot. But Mr. Davis, would you just share with us as the Director of Human Resources the extent to which you go beyond of us having our own job fair, bring in, you must have gave me a list of 30, 40 contacts. Would you just share with the community the kinds of things you have been doing as human resource to make sure that we get as many as much diversity in our hiring as possible? Would you just share briefly with us?
Absolutely. We do a number of different things. I technically start recruiting as early as January.
Could you stand up again? Could you go to the mic, please? Thank you.
We can get a loose walk around too.
I know you prepared for this, Mr. Davis, so I know I'm not catching you off guard, but I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Good evening. So in terms of recruiting for staff, I started as early as January. So I go to a number of different job fairs. In the past, we've attended Rowan, Rutgers, Stockton, TCNJ, Ryder. Also, there's a major job fair that's held in Pennsylvania, Greater Philadelphia, which about 300 or so different schools attend. So that would be New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, and some other districts. So those different things are done. In addition, I hold a major job fair here in district. And then with that, I do a major mailing of about 60 to 70 different institutions. Letters go out to the Divine Nine organization, which would be your African American, Greek fraternities and sororities. It goes out to Black churches, various organizations, all libraries in the Camden County area, as well as Winslow Township. So again, that list has about 70 or so different names that's attracted. In the past, we've had anywhere from 150 to 300 plus individuals that have come to the district job fairs that we've had. And I've also seen a number of people when I go out to different job fairs. I've had Dr. Parkino and other administrators who also attended with me at the outside school-run job fairs. So on any given year, we could actually hold interviews with 500 plus candidates, during when we've had a number of opportunities. So it can range anywhere from 200 or so people that we've interviewed in a given year to up to 1 year where we interview well over 500 candidates. And that's just pre-screening. After that, they come back for panel level interviews and then final level interviews in the building. The past couple of years, unfortunately, as a result of the pandemic, no one was holding in-person job fairs. So at that point, I just basically had to put postings out. Some of the schools had virtual job fairs that I did participate in, but for the most part, my applicants are on paper. Everybody was staying on paper. So it's very hard to diversify when you're putting a posting out and you're looking at a piece of paper. So with that, of course, you're doing the screenings, and then you will hold interviews with those candidates of interest. So when they were online, via Zoom, etc., of course, I'm not going to know who's who until they pop up on the screen. So with that, like I said, we did hold interviews based upon those candidates, and the best candidates were selected at that level from the building level principals. So the last couple of years, it was a little different because there were no in-person job fairs. Of course, in person, you basically get to see the person, you'll spend 15, 20 minutes, et cetera, screening, and then it kind of moves to the final phase. The past couple of years, as a result of the pandemic, everything was done virtually, and it wasn't until we got, let's say, to the final level that we would invite people in and kind of do more building-based interviews. But the initial rounds were online.
Mr. Davis, could you share with the community what percentage of our certificated staff are
Sure. At this point, our district is about 25% in terms of certificated staff color. So I would really challenge you to look at any district in this area. I've been doing HR for almost 20 years. Same scenario when I was in Winslow Township doing it. You're talking about districts that initially when I started were maybe at 5%. Same when I came here, and during my 9 years that I've been here in Winslow, it's gone from 5% to 25%. So I would really challenge you to find another district in Camden County or in this area that has a staff of about 25% that is minority.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. And we do not make excuses. We will continue to do our very best in making and trying to make our staff as diversified as possible. We were in a situation this year in particular, and we don't, because the young people that we hired were qualified, and at this point they're doing an excellent job for us. But we will continue to do our very best. Hopefully, this year we'll be able to have an in-person job fair, and hopefully we'll be able to do better. I know we've done better in previous years, but at this point, we are satisfied with the quality and the professionalism of the young people that we brought on board, but we will do our very best to continue to be as diversified as possible. Thank you. Mr. Thomas, you also mentioned light behind the bleachers at the football games, and we'll take a look at that before this weekend. We do bring in additional lighting from where we create lighting as opposed to just using the light from the poles. So we'll take a look at that. I'll have a conversation with Mr. Whitaker and see if we can get some light back. All right, thank you. Mrs. Gordon, you're absolutely right. In some cases, the issue isn't the uniform itself. It may be with the consistency. The only thing we ask parents to do that in the process of purchasing, if you would take a look or revisit the policy, and in there it shows you the colors and things like that, and try to get as close as possible to the colors that are recommended in the policy. However, I do agree that we have to continue to be consistent from building to building, classroom to classroom, because that's the only way we're going to get the full impact of this policy without a parent having two children in the school district, and one is being called on a situation as opposed to the other, and they may not be as apparent as you showed us today. They could be very close, but we need to, and we'll admit, we're not advocating perfection. Sometimes it may be at the discretion of the individual making that call, but what we want to do is to remove discretion out of it so that we are as consistent as possible. So I appreciate your recommendations, and we will revisit that situation as we move forward through the remainder of the school year. So I'd like to thank all of you who made comments, and hopefully I was able to answer your questions as you presented. Thank you, Madam President. That concludes my response for those who spoke.
Can I make one additional point based upon the question that was asked? And you pretty close to getting there, but there was a question about the board being involved in the hiring practices.
Oh, yeah.
I just want to indicate that, because I think this is important.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to indicate that there are very
serious consequences with the board interfering with the hiring practices. The state rules and ethical considerations are set up so that the board specifically does not get involved in the hiring practices, so it doesn't become a situation where it's who you know as opposed to what you know. So that's why Mr. Davis puts forth a very independent program, and he explained here tonight certainly better than I could, but I just want to make sure that the board ethically would be prohibited, as you all know from your training, of getting involved in anything of that nature. Just thought that was important.
Yes.
It's not a lack of wanting to, it's the legal ability to do so.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Ms. Collins.
Mr. Long, executive session?
Yes, ma'am. At this point in time, in accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act, we will be entering into an executive session on October 13th, 2021 at approximately 9:21 p.m. for the purpose of the 9 exceptions. Number 7, to discuss matters of attorney-client privilege to the extent confidentiality is required by the attorney, and that would be with respect to vendor liability. And the second one would be a personnel issue involving a supervisor capacity where the appropriate notices have been provided by Mr. Davis, and I would expect that the executive session would be approximately 40 minutes in length.
Thank you, Mr. Long.
There may be action coming out.
Thank you, board members. At this time, I'm asking for a motion to approve our moving into executive session.
Motion to approve and move into executive session.
Superintendent, second.
Moved and second that we move into executive session. Roll call, please.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Ms. Redmond?
Yes.
Ms. McClendon?
Yes.
Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
And Ms. Tittle?
Yes.
Motion has carried.
Thank you very much, Ms. Moore. We are now going to move into executive session. And some of you may not be here when we come out. I would just like to say for tomorrow, go Eagles, go! Thank you.